Hi, everybody. I hope this thing is on. Green light check. All right. I know it's been a while. Okay, I'm here. I'm in uniform. All right. Um, I was in some transitional periods, and so I am more than happy to be here to convey a message to you all. Um, I hope everybody is doing well. Let me start off by saying that. Okay. As we are going through life's journey, I am really happy that we are meeting here in these spaces and that you guys can tap into my level of consciousness. And if it's assisting you in any way in your life, I am grateful to be used as a vessel for that. Okay. Um, so gratitude, love, all of the good things onto you. And so we give thanks for that. All right. I do have some kokoroko playing in the background just to give me a little bits of energy. Because today was my day for relaxing, but I said, well, Spirit told me that I must get this out because it's part of my duty. All right. That's Morpheus speaking. That's part of my duty. Um, so yes, I want to also make sure that this is clear. I will reiterate it as much times as I need to reiterate it as I am here showing my level of consciousness to the world, is that we have a strong foundation of love and truth. Okay, that is the frequency where you will always find me because I have established a great resonance here with the foundations of love and truth. All right. So if this video finds you in your space and time, may that be your foundation for everything that you build from here forward. Okay. So what are we discussing today? Today we are discussing narcissism. All right. I know this word has been played in many realms of the internet corners, past, present, and future. But I want to make sure that we are getting a grounded understanding of what it is and how, as we are navigating through our life's journey, how we can navigate out of that frequency to come back to a place of peace. Okay, as well as heaven. All right. um I have experienced a lot of things from the last time you've all seen me, right? I know I posted an old video because I record, I may not actually post anything. It's just, if I'm not being called to share it with the collective, I just don't. Okay. So this is why I make intentional videos like I'm doing right now, where I'm saying this one is going to be for the collective. And not only that, I do have contracts in the unseen in order for me to do things here physically for those that are coming up behind. Okay. Um, and that comes in any age, right? Sometimes your consciousness travels a particular path because those who also saw that path went another way. And so we're coming on here just to let you guys know what our findings were. Okay. And if it's to help you get out of one frequency to change your reality in some way, that's what we make these posts here for. That's why any body of work, any work of art is being left behind for those who are seeking a reality shift, a transient from one state of being to another state of consciousness to another. All right, so we could talk on and on about that, but for my audience that are currently here in this video has found you, the theme of this conversation today will be narcissism. All right, now I'm going to start off by giving you the definition of narcissism. Narcissism is a personality style characterized by an excessive preoccupation with oneself, one's own needs, and an inflated, often grandiose self view. All right. So narcissism can take in, I guess there's 5 different types of narcissism, which is arrogance, right? Defensive, fragile, belittles, exploits, inflated self-view, right? Meaning that I'm the only one doing anything. It's because of me this is happening, right? It's like the self-centeredness to the point where it comes to the part of where you feel now you're taking the place of God. God not only in your own life, but in the lives of others. Okay, it's a very slippery slope and it's very subtle. Okay, any one of us can be infected by this. It's best to catch yourself before you get caught. Do you understand what I am saying? Because there's always bigger and brighter and better. All right, and I don't mean it was a point of comparison. What I mean is that there's nothing new under the sun. So where you on your level think that you are the most dominant fish, there's always a bigger fish. All right. So move accordingly, play in the ponds accordingly with that information. Do it with it as you will. But like I said, if you stay on the frequency of narcissism, it's just a matter of time before a bigger narcissist comes and devours, if you understand what I'm saying. All right. Aggressively or malicious. All right. Now, this is if you think about if you're thinking you're the biggest and the baddest in your camp, like I said, there's always bigger and badder. You understand? So I'm just giving you that as a foundation of understanding, right? Not to excite fear, because no matter what you are, no matter what I say, everything comes into evolution and resolution eventually. All right. But let's not stray with the egoic side of the conversation. All right. So now that you know what narcissism is, all right, it's in self importance, this grandiose sense of self where you not only think that you're God of oneself, but God of other people's lives. All right. You take away the other people's, what's the word when you have self-governance for yourself? You take away other people's rights, or they give it to you willingly and then you accept it to be head of them. All right. When you want to be someone's head, please take this as a will, right? When you feel as if God could only speak through you, all right, that's when things become problematic, right? You don't understand the wholeness of God. You think that you are doing works based off your own strength instead of divine energy that's being channeled through your vessel. Okay, it's a lack of humility. All right. This is how people get caught up in cults. When people want to give their own personal power away to an individual, you're feeding into an energy of narcissism. Whether or not you think, even the way that you think, if you can't wake up in the morning and trust your own divine inner guidance to lead your life, and you decide to now give that power to a man, give that power to an entity outside of yourself, then you are now feeding narcissistic energy. Right? God is within. Everything without is showing you the different reflections of God accordingly. All right? You may admire someone outside of you. It doesn't make them your Godhead. Anybody that's trying to become your head, you have to be very, 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 very on high alert as to what spirit are they particularly feeding. All right. And narcissism could come in the shape of family members. It could come in the shape of lovers. It could come into the shape of people who have egoic authority over you, meaning what? Like a position at work. Anything that has a title, and let's say I am deciding to be your leader at work, I'm your supervisor at work, right? Instead of keeping things about work, it starts becoming a thing of feeding an egoic identity, narcissism. Okay, narcissism is egocentric. All right. Um, Now, this is not to be confused with gratitude and the gifts from God. All right. Now, as I'm transitioning and I'm moving from one consciousness to another and then experiencing the reality that is the fruit of that consciousness, I say things like, God created this for me. I say that, especially when something is in perfect alignment, right? Give me a pause. Let me drink some water. Okay. When, and I'm sure if you're listening to this, think about an experience where you woke up one day, you thought of something from the past or something that you wanted or something that your heart said, yes, I would love to experience that. I would love to be aligned with that. And then God surprises you and they're like, boom, here it is. Here it is. divinely in time, and you think to yourself, God created this for me, right? And you in that moment in time, you are grateful, right? You are extremely grateful, and you think to yourself, yes, thank you, because you were able to receive it. You're open enough to receive it, and you're thankful because you realize the internal world is now being expressed outwardly, and you didn't have to fight for it. It just came to you naturally, right? Because what was designedly created for you will be for you, right? And there's nothing wrong with that mentality. The whole point I'm bringing that up is because I want to show you the difference, right? We're giving a juxtaposition on that kind of thinking, right? God created this for me, right? But not just for you. God created all of this for me and all those like you to truly appreciate it. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that's the difference between this idea of narcissism, when you're feeling egocentric, right? Is that understanding that you're not the only one like you. There's only one you, right? You have a particular energy signature that can only be found, that can tap into source, right? And source is going to know that you're the one tapping into it because of a particular ID code, just like your fingertips, right? You have your own genetic code thing that you have selected, right? And constantly also evolves according to the things that you choose. Okay? Your signature can change based off the things that you consume and the things that you embody. Right? You don't stay in one state of existence your entire life. All right? But like I said, your foundational structure can always be found. All right? It's just kind of like what it is. All right. So yes, you can change your software and things like that. And then as you procreate and you continue to create, you actually change. Your creations begin to change as well. But I'm straying off topic. Back to what I was saying as far as the egocentrism, right? God created this for me. You can say that, but also it is created for all those like you. Right? Because there's people in your likeness. Just because I like to drink water doesn't mean like nobody else likes to drink water. All right. There's people who are also like you. And that is the part that's going to be the key in helping you differentiate between your egoic identity and this idea that it's only just you in the world, and understanding that you are also a vessel and there's people who are also like you, just like how you were also like other people. All right. You see this face? This face is also I wouldn't say a copy. It could be a copy. It's a copy of my mother's face with different variations. All right. That's why I could live here in America, right? Go to a foreign land I've never been, and there will be someone there who also resembles me, looks like me. They're not me, but they look like me. All right. Do you see what I'm saying? It's this idea. This is the humbling of oneself. And once you actually explore outside of your inner world, you get to see that, and it's a humble experience because you're thinking you're the only thing that exists, and you're not. Okay, that's the balance of the narcissism. All right. Let me just also remind you guys, may we never close our senses to the truth. That is the part. When narcissism requires a foundation of illusion, that you are all there is, when really you're just dust in the wind. All right. This is the humility that is very much required for consciousness ascension. All right. Lest you get stagnant on the elements or the existence of hell within. Okay. So yes, are you special? Yes, you could be unique, all the things, but just because you exist, like I said, just by you existing means that there's others like you that also exist. All right? There's other people who share the same consciousness as you, but like I said, you're feeding an egoic identity of narcissism when you think that only you have power, when you think that only you can tap into source. All right. Are there others who haven't found their way connected to yet? Yes. But you were once there before as well. All right. unless you came here particularly with a purpose. And those people, we know who they are. We all know who they are. Right? Those who from birth knew their mission was like, you couldn't distract them from their goal. They didn't come here to experience anything other than fulfilling their divine mission. And they knew that from since they were young. They didn't get distracted with life lessons. You see what I'm saying? They're not even experiencing the world the same way that we're experiencing the world, because they already graduated from the lower levels of bullshit. Okay? So, like I said, humility is required. All right? And I'm only saying this because I observe myself and I observe others, right? We are all have the capabilities of becoming the observer, right? The scientist, and then we come back into humanity as we so desire. All right, but we come back to being the observer rather quickly when we realize what type of humanity we are being surrounded by. Okay? When you look around, you're like, oh, this level of humanity they're deciding to go to hell. But I don't have resonance with the frequency of hell. So I'm gonna go back to being the observer because I know my own inner pathway back into that tap in, right? Where you could be in the world and not of it. Once you discover that, there's really, like I said, you create accordingly. All right. That's the graduation part from lower level forms of humanity to the higher realms. It's the recognition of that. All right. And then humbling oneself. All right. So as I'm not watching it, but as you guys are watching the different things like the Nature Boy thing, which again, this is not new concepts, right? Everything is on a cycle loop, right? So where we had one Jonestown incident, you're going to have the same playbook being played over and over and over. A traumatized child is seeking shadow integration, and they do it the only way that they know how, by abuse and further traumatization. Okay, and so they recruit other people who are also fragmented, also dealing with the same resonance of trauma, and then they unite them where they become the god in their world, because it feeds again the spirit of narcissism. All right, this is why when you're going through certain levels of consciousness, you want to get to the place of forgiveness. Why? Because if you don't, you are destined to repeat the hell eventually. Okay? Yes, right? So as long as you're not doing your shadow integration personally, meaning you recognize the different thought forms that lurk in your shadow, and you treat them with compassion, right? And also make a firm decision, a definite decision that you will not become the trauma in other people's lives, you unfortunately will be under that wave that goes forth to do the same thing onto others, and maybe even a more grandiose, right? Because once trauma or hurt is infected into someone's heart and they cannot find their way through the, I call them azazel, which is the frequency of revenge, right? The frequency of retaliation. It will just multiply and multiply and multiply if you choose to ignore your shadow. You don't integrate the things and meet them with compassion and understanding in order to transmute them. All right, if you don't do that, you're constantly going to be on a frequency and resonance of hell. And like I was saying before in another video that I released out to everyone, is that we don't go to hell for no reason. All right, we do not go to hell for no reason. Sometimes we go to hell for people that we love, people that we are divinely assigned to. But even once we meet them there, it's their choice to come out of hell with us. It's a choice. Okay? So we cannot save anyone from their own personal hell. All right? We could only come just as much in resonance with them for them to see a pathway out. All right? Remember, what you do unto others, you're doing to yourself. All right. So if you make a conscious decision that if you were traumatized as a child, that you continue on traumatizing others, right? It's just going to be, you're going to stay on that wheel of karmic disposition until you decide to get out of it. All right. Let me take some water, please. All right. So we always give credit where credit is due, right? We don't worship the messenger. We do not crucify the messenger. Shout out to the religions who have done both. Christianity. All right. We don't worship the messenger, nor do we crucify the messenger. All right. However, we are grateful for when the messenger decides to deliver the message. Okay. And we are grateful for the vessel choosing to be a vessel to deliver the message. We send gratitude and love to you. All right. But we do not worship the messenger. Right. So we always give credit. We give credit to the messenger for answering the call and being used as a vessel to deliver the message. All right. This is why you meet people in your life when they will say something to you and it redirects you into another paradigm of thinking, another state of consciousness. We say thank you. We give gratitude to them for being present enough to, one, ask the right questions. All right. There was a young lady that I used to love watching her consciousness, and I actually met her in real time, and we exchanged energy. Her name was Nicole Ray. All right, she was really good at asking the right questions when she wasn't in hell. Okay, she was in purgatory a couple of times, but when she was not in hell, and she decided to ascend, and she decided not to, when she decided to become the dot instead of going around the circle, she asked the correct questions. All right. And this is why we give gratitude to her. Okay. However, like I said, once you start tapping into this thing, it's really easy for you to get into a state of egotism, right? Or egomania, right? Narcissism, right? And that's the resonance. That's why narcissistic people can find their victims, because the victims themselves also want to wield this narcissism. I've met this in many different people. Okay. But yes, they also will wield the narcissism in order to, they give their power to the narcissist because they, in hopes one day would rise to that kind of, that confidence to also be a ruler over others. Okay. That's what I'm saying. As far as you're guiding your humanity, just try to be mindful of that. So we give credit for people being in alignment to deliver messages, right? It doesn't have to be a psychic person with a head wrap and, you know, long nails and a nose ring. It doesn't have to be that aesthetic. Anyone, God can use any single thing that you see. Anything. It could be a book. It could be tarot cards. It could be your mom. It could be your father. It could be your dog. It could be a bird. It could be a snake. Don't come here with your fearful shit. Okay. It could be a snake. It could be anything to deliver a message, particularly for you and your divine purpose. Okay. And then we say thank you to those vessels. All right. So let's get back to the notes. Okay. So where the point of clarity that I would like to provide all of you who are still here, right? It comes to the idea of being an individual and still connected to the whole. All right. That's where people are getting, all right, because we want everyone to stay in their role, stay in their lanes, right? And at no point you are assigned to be anything to anybody else other than the agreed upon role. Right? You're not here to be anybody's God. You're not here to be anybody's leader. That's why all this prophet shit, egoic identity. It's a spirit disguising itself as God. Anyone that's not leading you back to yourself, again, shout out to Nicole. She did a really good job at mediating that part and not letting the narcissism take way into her heart. Anybody that is trying to stray you further from your internal compass is served there as a distraction and an energy feeder. Okay? These are the type of people who have addictive personalities, who don't have self-discipline. Okay? So even humanity itself is a beautiful thing to experience, but you do not forget your soul mission. All right? These things are added on to you. All right? But there's something in particularly your soul came here to experience, to ascend with, and it's usually just leading to the oneness of God, to be honest. That's all of this that there is. All right? Even though our spirits are in physical bodies, we understand that we are renting these bodies until we get back to the divine. Our spirit, our breath is borrowed. You understand? And the sooner that you pick that up in your evolution, the better it is for everybody. All right? So, being an individual connected to the whole, right? You are an individual connected to the whole. So there's source, right? Divine infinite wisdom that we all collect knowledge into just by us experiencing through these eyes, not just these eyes, but all the eyes. All right? We are experiencing everything, even the things that we're not seeing through these eyes. Okay? That's why they talk about your subconscious mind, how you pick up things without you even really consciously being aware that you're picking it up to. And it's being fed into a database, which we're calling source. All right. This is where all the ideas come from. This is why you could be in Timbuktu somewhere. Shout out to Timbuktu, right? Have an idea, and someone quite far west can have the same exact idea because we're all tapping into the same source. All humans are connected to source. This is why giving credit is an illusion. All we're saying is that, hey, I won't use my deck. I'll use John Holland's deck. Hey, John Holland, good job in answering the call into taking the infinite knowledge of source and making it here physical for those of us who are coming up, who are learning. Every textbook, every book that you read is actually source's name on it. Through the messenger of John Holland, through the messenger of Shamika or Meek the Minx, right? Through the messenger of whatever egoic title that is being presented to you here. All right? That's why you always give reverence to God first, right? This way you don't try to play like you're playing God in other people's life, because you know you're only getting in. The only reason why you're getting this information is because you're tapped in. And you're not the only one with that information. Just think about even like back in the day, I know some of you guys may not remember this time of life, but there was a library, right? Which was a collection of all different consciousness into one space. That is the physical representation of what happens in the spirit consistently. That's why every time you raise to a certain level of understanding, you say thank you to God first. Because then you understand the humility. Don't lose the connection or try to replace God even in your own being. Do you see what I'm saying? When I go outside and I experience something delightful, I thank God. Right? Especially if I don't even have to, I didn't say it out loud, right? This was an internal thing. It checks me back into the idea that everything that I'm doing is because God gave it to me. It's because source gave it to me. I'm not separate from source, but I don't try to be source, especially in the lives of other people that I'm interacting with. The only thing I do is I'm a steward. Even my dog, who is a trained animal, right? I am a steward of her. I decided to take on that responsibility to have her her safety in mind, as well as her development and her growth. Just like plants, anything that I decide to become a steward of, right? I'm not an owner of her, right? Anybody, any connection that I have as far as my friends go, I decided to be a friend in your life, which means that I listen to the tap in to God first. If God tells me, give your friend this thing, I do it. If God tells me, give your mom this thing, I do it. If God tells me, give your brother this thing, I do it. And then later on, they're like, how did you know? It's because I'm tapped into God. This way you don't even have to say it. I show up in the right place in the right time. And I give these services accordingly because I'm tapped in. It's not really Shamika. I am thankful for Shamika, my vessel, me, to be able to be in the right space in the right time, because that's what I pray for. That's what I use my ashe for. Right? I say, God, use me as a vessel so that I can help these people, so I can help myself, so I can get out of this paradigm of thinking and be in more of a peaceful one. This is where when I send my prayers, it doesn't matter what part or what corner of the earth I'm in, as long as I am using my words, you will hear me, because we're all tapped into the same source. This is why when I say, I love you, Auntie, right? And she's quite all the way in Trinidad and Tobago, she will hear me when it's time to be heard. This is why credit is an illusion. There's only one God, right? With many combinations of expression. This is where, when you're downloading people's consciousness, you have to know when the truth has left them. Okay. So I know some people say, no, there's many different gods. No, they're all tapping into the same source. All right. Just like there's planetary bodies, right, that express themselves very differently. This is why there's an illusion of God and the devil. It's an illusion. They're one. They're just different expressions. One that's more closely knit to the wholeness of God, and one that's deciding to be separate from or fragmented with. That's the difference between demons and angels, right? They're different polarities, right? They're just different polarities, right? But when you decide to accept the wholeness and the oneness of God, right? That's when everything starts. You're not fragmented in being. Okay? So when we say the God of this, the God of that, no, they're just expressions of the source. All of those things live within you. Shout out to one of my older teachers as well, who taught me in a negative experience. But yes, he has said to me, he is all these signs. And I understand now what that means. All right? But we fluctuate. We fluctuate. Can you be present all the time? Yes. Can you be? Actually, I don't know, because sometimes my presence, I drift. Sometimes I drift, right? Right now, I'm reading a book by Napoleon Hill called Outwitting the Devil. And in the book, it's a little cheesy because he makes it seem like he's talking to the devil. When I say this, it's not really cheesy, because that's what you do in meditation. You call a frequency and you decide to ask that frequency questions, and you do so without bias, right? So that's the idea, is that he's talking to the devil, and the devil that's within him, because that's what's giving him the responses. And I, as an outsider reading, I can see what his consciousness decides to be the devil figure. What is his temptations? And to him, having drifting is a temptation. Right? Drifting, meaning that you are not present. You allow your mind to wander, is a temptation for him, because what he values is structure and definiteness, for things to be defined and definite. He doesn't like looseness. Okay? And that's what caused the drift. All right. And depending on who you are, it depends on what is required for your soul's journey. So the devil may look like different things depending on which consciousness that you're speaking of. All right. So why was I mentioning that? The drifting part. Okay. Yes. That God and the devil are one. It's just different forms of expressions. Okay. So Yes, different polarities in one's hearts, right? So once you sit with yourself and you really get to know yourself thoroughly, you're looking at your shadow. What are the things that tempt you? What are the things that you want to align yourself with? What things that you want to change? What things you want to stay the same? This again, this is all this expression of God through your vessel is all up to you. Being also mindful that what you do unto others, you do unto yourself. All right. So where your world interacts with the world outside of you is really what that's deciding your karmic or dharma or dharmic disposition. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's whether you're in debt or you are in the black, right? Serious times. All right. So the same vessel that can embody love, healing, can embody wrath and destruction. And once you get out of that duality, polarity mindset, a lot of things begin to open and make sense to you, right? You don't move in the operation of fear, right? And what I hear a lot of time with the narcissism is that maybe no one's seen them before. The trauma that they went undergone, the trauma that they experienced was due to neglect or not being seen, especially when they're children. No one was paying attention, or no one had the courage to take them when they did not have the when they were vulnerable. They didn't have the power to leave for themselves, or they didn't have, or the authority that was over them was stifling them. So as they grow up, keep on living, and if they decide not to take their own life, they decide now, their inner child's like, I want to be seen. I want to be validated. And they do so by getting the attention of those that, from others. They get validated and the attention from others, right? Which again is still breeding the same monster of narcissism. So they're created. This entity is created, right? If you guys ever get a chance, I do recommend the show The Sandman on Netflix. There's some really good stuff in there, extremely good stuff. Okay. And in that there's a particular episode where Morpheus, the dream king, he gets the keys from hell because Lucifer gives him the keys of hell. This is actually what happens internally as you go through your consciousness evolution. If you start seeing the parallels, please hit me up. I love talking about stuff like that. But he gets the keys from hell from Lucifer, and all of the demons end up at his doorstep. Morpheus. All the demons come up to Morpheus, and Azazel, who is the demon of revenge, right? His righteousness is about people who are homeless, people who are victims of sexual abuse. His embodiment is also fragmented and demonic, right? And he feels empowered by that trauma to the point where he causes affliction based on his own judgment onto the lives of others to consume them. All right. That's the entity that exists when trauma is not healed and transmuted. Okay. And not only that, it becomes to be a vortex to attract all those within resonance of that trauma, whether it be you're the victim of it or whether you be the person actually wanting to embody the trauma to put it onto someone else. All right. So we, as a collective, right? There's only one God. Your expression of that source is unique to yourself, right? Every factor of your life, whether it be your genetics, your environment, right? It molds you, okay? And it creates similarities and differences with everyone else that is outside of you, everything else that's outside of you, okay? So we can share the same spirit, and that spirit can be expressed uniquely. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I'm talking about different spirits. This is why sometimes you can eat something and you can behave in a certain way, or you can be attracted to a certain thing where someone eats the same thing and they can have a different kind of thing. Okay? Everything is spiritual. Everything holds a spiritual frequency. All right? Let me take a pause. All right. Everything is about expansion and contraction. All right. Your inner world is always going to be reflected on the outer world. So if there's something in your outer world that you realize that this is not in resonance, that's because you're either transitioning that outside of you. You're transmuting it. Where something was once there is now trying to be something else. All right. This is why you're so anchored in your inner world that you can be fully aware of what is and is not in resonance when interacting with the outer world. All right? Because there's tons of spirits around you. There's tons of frequencies. There are higher level frequencies of God and there's lower level frequencies of God. Once you start really being anchored into what frequency you're maintaining within yourself, all right, you're able to see where everyone else is shifting and moving and what their resonance is within you. All right. So I heard the question, is it selfish to prioritize oneself? And the answer is no, it's not. All right. Narcissism is when your thoughts and your sense of self tries to dominate those interacting with your world or within your orbit, to the point where you can't even consider other possibilities of existence. All right. Your differences to me does not affect me into getting into a space of negativity. You have to, if I exist, the opposite must exist. This is why your existence is not a threat to me and my existence is not a threat to you, because we understand the idea of duality. We understand the idea of divine oneness. The yin and the yang, truly. Right? I just don't live there. I don't operate where you're operating. You don't operate where I'm operating. Right? And divinely so, there's going to be a scatta. We're going to be out of resonance. That's why there's so many different worlds on one planet. All right? Where there's no resonance, there's no resonance. All right? If you are being a victim to narcissism, it's because there's a resonance there that needs to be cleaned up inwardly. All right? You want to feel special. You want validation from something external from you. That's how you get caught up in these kind of situations and these cult-like mentalities. Or if you're trying to outsource the power of God to an entity outside of yourself who is pretending to be God in your life. It's an illusion. All right? But you have to really value the truth more than any illusion for you to break out of it. Right? This is coming from someone who went insane and came back. All right. And I am very grateful for that trip. All right. All right. All right. So what are you trying to take credit for in the lives of others? That is the biggest part. Every time you want to check your narcissistic spirit that could creep up out of nowhere like boo. All right. Are you trying to take credit for something in the lives of others? In my personal walk, I know I can meet someone and they, for some reason, they think they figured me out. And I usually am very quiet when I meet people, right? You have to get to know people holistically, not by the framework of you knowing them for a couple weeks, a couple months. That's not enough. All right. You're never going to know the whole catalog of someone's personality, but remember that anything that you're reading from them is from your level of perception and what they are showing you in this moment in time. Right? There's a whole catalog of their being, a whole book with many different chapters, and it's thick. All right. So keep that in mind. All right. You ever meet someone and because let's say you enjoy something and they also are in resonance with that enjoyment of that activity, and then all of a sudden they get really good at it and you're like, oh, it's because of me that they started doing that. Narcissism. The only reason why this person took up knitting was because I was a knitter. The only reason why this person took up a paintbrush is because I am a this. They were already divinely designed calling to do that. Right? Because they had love for a particular frequency in their hearts. That's how you guys became in resonance. That's a narcissism, that spirit that's trying to be embodied in your vessel. If you think because someone's interest and they're enjoying an interest came because of you, like I said, the messenger, it could be that God source was making you guys in resonance for a common love for something, and that you were divinely given as a teacher to play a certain role in that person's life, that you are now trying to take over the entire chapter. That's crazy. Check your spirits. All right. That's why the humility. Because we're not the first nor the last to pick up that particular hobby or interest. Don't get it confused. Remember that your perception is mostly valuable to yourself. All right. I'll tell you one quick thing, and I'm probably going to end this after this page is done, is that I remember, so I'm in a new environment. I met some new people, and one thing about me is I am very, what's the word, tenacious? Is that the word? If you give me something, I will try my best to figure it out. And if not, I'll put it down and wait for the right answer to come, because I believe that every problem has a solution. That's ingrained in my foundation. I remember one time I was looking at something and then someone said, "Oh, she's competitive." Now, through this person's perception, I heard it, but I heard it and I just had to put a pin in it, because in my mind, I'm like, look how this person's perceiving me, right? I am focused on completing a task. And because of this person's resonance and or lack of eyes and perception or inner work that they're doing, they see as everything that I'm doing to be in competition or comparison to someone else. It couldn't just be that this person's dedicated into solving the problem. All right. That's the only reason why I'm bringing that up, is to show you that everyone's perception is valuable to them. It doesn't really hold true to what the actual truth is to your particular storyline. All this person saw was that I was dedicating and finding a solution, and they perceived it. The truth was I was looking at something, determined to figure it out, and they perceived it as me being in competition with someone else, who, by the way, I didn't even know was working on the same problem. Okay, so that's my point. My point is that people will perceive things according to their level of awareness. Don't take it personal. Let it go. But my whole point is that you're gonna see this in your life. Okay, them expressing themselves to you just lets you know the level of frequency that they're on. They live there. All right, it doesn't make it actually true. It's just something that they perceive. All right, your perception of things bring forth your reality. But the truth will always remain the truth, regardless of the test of time. All right? All right. Your perception will be valuable to yourself, right? This is why when we speak, we say, this is only valuable to I and I. I, those who have my eyes, and those who have the eyes like mine. Okay? So where I see myself within you, I offer advice with love. All right. So if I'm speaking to you and you're understanding what I'm saying, it's because we are similar. We're not the same. We're uniquely different, but we have similar perceptions. We see things. We have resonance after experiences, life, whatever the thing may be that helps shape our consciousness to see certain things. All right. So when I'm speaking to I and I, it's because I see the divinity within you. I see the me in you, and the you in me. Do you see what I'm saying? There's a difference. Not to erase who you are, not to erase who I am, because remember, individuals are part of the whole. All right. But to the point that we're not getting narcissistic in our commonalities or getting into competitive or comparison energy. So the advice that I give to myself is the advice I will give to you. Ubuntu. I am, therefore we are. You understand? Because I love myself and I meet myself past, present, and future with that same love and compassion. Okay? That is spoken like a true traveler, if you get what I'm saying. All right? Because you're just meeting yourself past, present, and future. That's why you meet those people with compassion, whether it be things that you're overcame, things that you're about to overcome. All right. I also wrote here, just for the collective, be aware of those that are attempting to sell you back to you. All right. This is why it's very important to establish a strong connection with your higher self, which lives within. And sometimes it's very quiet, it's very subtle. Find the time to meditate, to make sure that you are especially when you're making big decisions, to get into that quietness so that that connection is strong and present, that you don't give way to, do it now, that kind of frequency, that impatience. No. God is very patient. All right. So be mindful of those that are attempting to sell you back to you, also to sell you back to you. And also, we must value the truth and be comforted by the truth, so that all illusions fall from our eyes.